This is the keynote address given by Mike Rhodes at the Tulare Homeless Summit, which was held on Saturday, November 15th at the First Lutheran Church in Tulare, California. The main point I want to make in this presentation is that homelessness is not a crime. There are reasons why homeless people are on the street that go way beyond personal issues that homeless people have. It is a result of national policy, priorities, and a political will to change homelessness. The resources are there, they're just not being used to end homelessness. In this presentation, we're going to look at cutbacks in low-income housing programs. Talk about homelessness is not a personal problem. Ask the question, is this a war on the poor? What impacts is this having on our communities? What are the Band-Aid solutions that are being offered by the government? Federal funding priorities, and what must be done. If you look at this chart, you'll see that there was much more funding available for low-income housing if you go back to 1978 and before. About that time, funding for low-income public housing was decimated. You could see the graph going down and then flatlining. Replacing that are programs that address the symptoms of homelessness as it became more visible in our communities. And this is a great illustration that shows how decisions that are made at the national level affect the number of homeless people that are on the streets today. This started at about a time when a economic theory about trickle down started, and it was an ideology that if you give money to the rich, that somehow it will trickle down and reach the poor. You can see how well that has worked. What's happened is that this funding that is now available largely comes through HUD. And in Tulare County, Tulare Kings, the Homeless Alliance, the Continuum of Care, which is the organization that applies for and receives money for agencies, has applied for about $2 million in HUD money in 2014. This is clearly not enough money to end homelessness in this area. There have also been significant cuts in rural housing, which affects Tulare greatly. If you look at this chart, you'll see the decline of affordable housing units from the USDA, which had built 38,650 affordable housing units in 1979 and only 763 in 2011. In 2012-2013, the number is 0. Housing is also being used as a commodity. 261,419 units of public housing was lost through sale, demolition, and Hope 6. 360,000 when you're including what's been lost through Section 8. Over 5 million foreclosures from 2008 to 2014, and 13 million vacant housing units in 2013. So you can see that homelessness is a result of the political and economic system that we live in, and it's not a personal problem. There is a war on the poor coming from trickle-down economic theories, welfare reform, mass imprisonment, factories and jobs are being shipped overseas, there's a tax on unions, huge income inequality, job insecurity, and debt. And there's also privatization in the public services, which take away jobs that pay a living wage and provide health care for families. The impact on communities is that there are more families with children that are homeless. In fact, that's the fastest growing group of homeless in the U.S. today, are families with children. Seniors and people with disabilities can be found in shelters and under bridges in many communities. There's a lack of legal status, rights, and public benefits fueling homelessness among undocumented immigrants. There's also a move towards quality of life laws, which prevent people from sleeping in public, camping in public, lying on a sidewalk, sitting on a sidewalk, and the list goes on. Just last week, Arnold Abbott, a 90-year-old man, was detained and cited for feeding the homeless in Fort Lauderdale. This has happened in other communities around the country too, where people trying to help the homeless have been cited, detained, and even arrested. The criminalization of homelessness and poverty has been documented by the Western Regional Advocacy Project, WRAP, in San Francisco. They surveyed 1,276 people in 5 states recently, asking about their experience of being homeless and being harassed, cited, and arrested for various quality of life laws. 81% of homeless people said that they have been harassed for sleeping. 50% of those have been cited, and 30% have been arrested. In this survey, 78% say they've been harassed for sitting or lying down. 43% of them have been cited, and 26% of homeless people have been arrested for simply sitting or lying down. 66% have been harassed for loitering or hanging out, with 41% of these people cited and 25% of them arrested. In Fresno, where I'm from, these quality of life laws led the city of Fresno to take and immediately destroy homeless people's property. You can see them, city sanitation workers, picking up a shopping cart and throwing it and the contents that were owned by a homeless person into the back of a garbage truck where it was crushed and destroyed. The picture on the right shows a tent that had been picked up off the street by a bulldozer and being put into the back of a garbage truck. These actions by the city of Fresno led to a lawsuit that was filed against the city of Fresno for violating homeless people's constitutional rights. This led to a $2.3 million settlement to compensate the homeless for the losses they had suffered. But again, in 2011, the destruction of Fresno homeless encampments resumed. New lawsuits were filed. Some of the legal firms involved with this were the Arnold and Porter law firm in the Bay Area, the Central California Legal Services Group, which is in Fresno, Tulare, and Merced. And in the previous lawsuit that was cited with the $2.3 million settlement, the American Civil Liberties Union played an important role in that lawsuit. The pictures you see here are of city sanitation workers kicking down a homeless shelter, and the woman on the right is watching her shelter be destroyed. This woman later died on the streets. She had no adequate shelter. She was simply living on the streets, and she passed away, as did several other homeless people during that time. In late 2011, early 2012, a number of homeless people died, and a contributing factor to that was their exposure to the elements. So what are these Band-Aid solutions that we're talking about? They are that the federal government prioritizes different segments of the homeless population to target from time to time. Right now, veterans are a focus of the federal government. They want to end homelessness for the veterans, which is great. Everybody does. But that focus then doesn't address, say, homeless youth or families or the chronically homeless. So you have a cycle of them targeting different segments of the community at different times, but it's never enough to end homelessness for all categories. And this chart shows that dynamic. If you start at the bottom of the chart, where there's ever-changing policies geared towards fixing different subpopulations of homeless people, that leads to periodic calls for local homeless plans based on the newest policy. These temporary responses to homelessness that fail to address systematic causes of homelessness lead to increased homelessness. Then the stereotypes of homeless people as being degenerate, leading to the premise that homelessness is caused by the deficiencies of homeless people, bringing us full circle to targeting specific subgroups of the homeless, like veterans or youth or the chronically homeless. Federal funding priorities show us that there is money to address housing from the federal government, but most of that money, as this chart shows, is going to people that already own their homes, or maybe even they have a second home and they're getting tax deductions on those homes. So the vast majority of money that goes towards housing is going to help people who already have housing and not low and moderate income housing. Taking a look at how much money the federal government is using for the military is instructive in understanding these priorities. The cost of 2 Virginia-class attack submarines is $4.25 billion, and we have 10 of those in inventory. All homeless assistance grants in this country come up to $1.73 billion. We're just saying that if you spend less money on the military and wars in the Middle East, we would have the funds to eliminate homelessness in the country. But because of federal priorities, homelessness remains a very visible issue across the country. What do we do about it? We make housing a human right, restore federal housing funding, turn vacant buildings into housing, repeal immigration status as screening criteria for housing assistance, end demolitions without replacement and a right to return, and we stop the criminalization of poor people. And how we do that is organizing around people, build alliances across race, nationality, class, gender, and religion, connect organizing for housing to education, health care, dignified work, immigrant rights, and economic security. And we value mutual humanity. We're calling on everybody to take action now, connect local organizing with efforts to build a broader social justice movement, speak out for housing as a human right, protect homeless people's constitutional and legal right, create safe and legal places where the homeless can live with dignity and respect.
Get up, stand up for your rights.